Hello everyone, this is Jess Spalding, the Senior Implementation Specialist here at Smart Service. Today we're going to be talking about what's in store for you in Smart Service version 107. Let's go ahead and dive in. The first item on our list for version 107 is the Access Runtime update and what comes with that update. Access Runtime has reached its end of life per Microsoft, so we'll be switching over to Access Runtime 2013. This means that Smart Service is no longer going to be compatible with Office 2013 64-bit installations. So, if you have a 64-bit installation of the Office suite, you'll want to get with an IT professional or somebody in your office that manages your computers for you so that they can help you transition from the 64-bit version of Office over to the 32-bit version of Office. To avoid any kind of complications that you might run into, if you're not sure what you need to do here, please reach out to the help desk so that they can give you a hand with what your next step should be. It's important to note that we're not going to be able to facilitate doing this switch for you, as it requires us to have access to keys and registration information for your Office suite. If we don't have access to that and we try to switch you over, you're essentially going to be down because we won't be able to fully install everything for you again there. So we want to make sure that it's somebody on your end that's helping you set this up so that there's somebody on site that can assist with any kind of issues that might arise. Our second topic for this video is the new ability that you'll have with version 107 to limit when jobs are resent out to an iFleet device. So to do this, there's a new setting inside of your settings section of Smart Service that will let you turn this on or off. So we're going to take a look at that first. To get there, what we need to do is we need to go to our settings, and then from here we need to go down to the iFleet tab. Inside the iFleet tab, you're going to notice that there has been a little bit of a layout change, and we now have a new option for limiting job resends. If we were to go ahead and turn this setting on, we're going to receive a prompt that details what actually happens when the setting is active. Essentially, if you turn this setting on, and your iFleet user has already started his production timestamps in iFleet for the job that you're making adjustments to, your changes to the scheduling information or the address information or any of the other various resend triggers that you'd see in Smart Service will no longer send this job back to that device, which typically ends up meaning that the technician loses information and confusion ensues. Now that we've covered what this does, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on so that it's active in my system. With this new option to limit job resends, we've also added a new functionality in iFleet, which is going to alert the technician if a job has been adjusted by the office when they synchronize their device. I've switched over to iFleet here so we can take a look at what that new visual UI element is going to look like for the technician. So if you note, on my second job for Amy Butler, instead of having a number next to the date and time, I now have an exclamation mark. When the office makes a change to a job, this exclamation mark is going to appear the next time the technician syncs. So it's very important to note that technicians still need to make sure that they're doing their sync operations in iFleet, and we typically recommend for them to do those at the beginning of the day before they start working, between each job if they can, and at the end of the day, once they've wrapped everything up, we want to make sure that they hit that synchronize button one last time to make sure everything has been sent off their device. This process is also going to help avoid any issues where a technician might miss a job or there is any kind of confusion that might arise from them not synchronizing. The next item on our list for this video is going to be the automated sales tax functionality that we've added support for our QuickBooks Online customers. This option only affects QuickBooks Online users, so if you're using the desktop version of QuickBooks, this doesn't really pertain to you. But we have added in some new functionality where we're going to be able to support the automated sales tax functions over in QuickBooks Online. If you currently are managing your own taxes and you're not using the automated sales tax options in QuickBooks, this doesn't pertain to you either. It is something that you can turn on, and it'll take some of the guesswork out of getting the proper tax rates and things like that assigned to customers, but it's not something that you have to move over to if you're not currently using it. If you would like to be able to use this in Smart Service, we need to go into our settings and we need to turn on the functionality for this. So to do that, we'll go into our settings. From here, we're going to go into defaults. And in the section down here, kind of towards the middle of the screen, you're going to see a new option if you're using QuickBooks Online to enable the automated sales tax options. So next to this, you've also got a little bit of an explanation for what this is. So if we click on that little button, it goes through what this setting is and what we're going to be doing as we turn this on and we start utilizing it. As we turn this on and we start utilizing it, it is essentially going to create a $0 invoice over in your QuickBooks to validate any of the tax information for that particular customer based off of their service address. Once that's done gathering the information that it needs, it's going to remove that invoice. So you're not going to see any of these extra invoices floating around over in QuickBooks or anything of that nature. But we'll go ahead and dismiss this guy, and we're going to turn this setting on. So when we turn it on, we're going to get that prompt again. It's going to explain things to us again here, letting us know that it's going to create those temporary invoices. If you want to turn it on, just go ahead and say yes. And essentially, you need to make sure that all the records that you would be adjusting with this are closed for these changes to take effect. So I don't have anything open, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to hit my dashboard button to get out of settings to make sure that that saves. And now I'm going to go over to my search screen and show you what this looks like inside of the different records. You'll see this option in the customer level, the location level, as well as the job levels inside of Smart Service. So if we go over to search, I could just pick any one of these customers. We'll go ahead and pick on Andre here. Once we open this up, it's going to do a little sync. So if you notice that the cursor turned into the little spinny wheel, thinking about what it's doing there. And as it did that, it turned this little check mark from dark gray over to green, and it selected the proper tax for this particular customer based on their service address information. This little check mark can be clicked on as well. So if you click on that, it's going to essentially ping QuickBooks again to try to update this tax information. So if we say yes, it'll update. If there's anything to change, it'll adjust from there. But you'll see this setting and this option available at each level: customer, location, and job. The next item that we're going to be taking a look at for version 107, and one of the last major updates for this version, are improvements to the batch invoicing processes for customers using our payment processing options. Let's go ahead and take a look at a job that's been set up to be batched, and we're going to go ahead and apply a payment to this so that we can take a look at that prompt. So I'm going to go to my Amy Butler job here. We can see that I've got it set up to be batched for the job. If I take a look at my job item section, we can see I have an ongoing service charge here of $25 per week based off of my scheduling pattern here. So now that we can see that this job was done yesterday on the 15th, we're going to go ahead and go down to our payment section, and we're going to go ahead and try to add a payment. So when we select to add payment, we're going to get our prompt that tells us that there's going to be a potential inconsistency here just due to how those taxes are calculated. So we'll go ahead and say yes. And then it's going to bring up our window to make the payment. Now for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and do a simple payment here of a check for the total amount. Go ahead and add in a check number, add a memo. That way when this gets pushed over into QuickBooks, we can tell what this was for. So we'll go ahead and save that. Now we have our payment sitting here in Smart Service, ready to be pushed over to QuickBooks when we're ready for that step. With these changes to the batch invoicing, we've also added in functionality to allow the users to basically hold on to a payment until we're ready to push everything over to QuickBooks once the job or the billing cycle is done. So this payment is going to stay in Smart Service for the time being. In order to get this over into my batch, I'm going to go ahead and complete this. And it's going to move us to our next scheduled date. And if we were to go to our dashboard, go to Office, and then down to Batch Invoices to QuickBooks, we're going to see that job sitting in here with the payment, and we can open that up and we can do our reviews and everything that we might need to do here. If everything is ready to go with this, we can go ahead and hit the Post button on this, and that's going to send our invoice over into QuickBooks for us. The next few items that we have here for version 107 are somewhat smaller in terms of their scope and what we had to do to get them into the system, but they do have a lot of good use that you guys will be able to put them to. The very first thing that I want to take a look at with you here is going to be our copy data functionality. A lot of people have requested that we have an option to basically select all as we go through the copy data process. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Amy Butler, and we're going to go into the copy data tool for her profile. When we open that up, we can still go in here and we can select the individual fields if we needed to, or you can select the very top field next to standard fields, and that's going to select everything that we want to update. From here, I would go through the normal process of hitting the next button, updating the details for whatever records I want to update. And we have also added that check all option in here as well. So if you've got a customer like Amy here with a bunch of different jobs, we can go ahead and check all of those off all at once. Now you can also go down here and fine tune what you're trying to check off. And when we hit our next button, it's going to tell us what we're updating, where we're updating it, and then we're going to go through our complete step here. Now, through a little bit of editing magic, we can see that we've gone through all 37 of those records. None of them had any kind of errors as we tried to update them, so we can go ahead and hit the close button. Just as a little bit of a heads up, on my system, that took about 1.5 minutes to run through 37 records. Your results are going to vary based on your setup, so just kind of keep in mind that if you're going to do a massive change to a bunch of different records, it can take a moment to run through. The next item that I want to take a look at with you is your ability to print out receipts if you're using our credit card or electronic check processing options through Smart Service and iFleet. So this is something that's also been requested by quite a few customers looking to have some way to print out a receipt for a customer. So this is going to take us into the post payments section. So if we go back to our dashboard for a moment, we go into post payments. We're going to open up this screen. Now you'll probably see quite a bit more information in here than what I have on mine. I'm filtered down to a specific date range so that we can look at just one of the items in this list. So we can see I took a payment for a job for Amy Butler. If I was to click down here after we see the customer name column, that's going to open up that payment record for me. And then when I get in here, I'll have the ability to print out my receipt. These also work on voided and refunded payments as well. In this version, we've also added in some new options for our reporting section as well. These are going to have to do with the job exception options that you guys have been using over the past year, a little longer than a year. Previously, you were only able to report on job exceptions on the active jobs, which doesn't really give you much information about why a job might have been postponed or skipped over or any of those important details. So when we go into our reporting section, and we go in and we take a look at one of our history reports, go into our design tools. Instead of here, if we go into our drop-down, we'll be able to find the job exception option by scrolling, or you can start typing it in and it will pull up that as you get to it. But we can see here I've got job exception, and if I select that option, inside of my report, I'll now be able to see any job exceptions that are on history records moving forward. So it's important to note that this is not going to be visible for any of the past jobs that we've had, but moving forward, you're going to have that ability in all your different history reports. And the last item that we're going to be taking a look at today for the version 107 update is a new option under your settings that primarily has uses for the help desk when we need to do a troubleshooting call for things like iFleet issues or Google Calendar or Routesy issues. So when we're inside of our settings, under our company tab, we're now going to have this new View Application Log. So when we go to open that up, that's going to give us a report of all of the messages that iFleet and Google Calendar are sending behind the scenes. So really, this is primarily going to be something that we can utilize to do help desk troubleshooting, but we wanted to kind of point this out to you so that you can kind of see something that might alleviate some of the situations where you might have to get us connected to your server to troubleshoot an iFleet issue. So this log would typically be called on the server when we do that help desk call so that we can go through and see what the issues were, what's been happening with the service. And if we take a look at the top here, we can note that we have several different options for what you can include in this log. Right now I'm filtered down specifically to iFleet. I could also do something like check all, and that's going to show me all of the entries in my system for all the communication that Smart Service is trying to do with the applications that we have out there in the field, our payment processing, and things of that nature. You'll also be able to come up here to the top and narrow down to just look at the errors that might be popping up as we do things. We can also adjust how many records we see in this screen as we go. Now down at the very bottom, you'll notice that we have several different pages of information. This is going to be a fairly large section and going to have a lot of log entries in here. So just kind of keep in mind that this is all stuff that's happening in the background. You don't have to do anything with this. It's really just something we wanted to kind of point out to you so that you know that it's here now. But I'm going to go ahead and turn on the errors only option so that we can have it refresh and pull in just the error messages. Because a lot of this stuff in here is actually going to be just information that's passing back and forth, and there might not be a lot of errors that are happening. But as I switch that over to errors only, we can see it narrowed down my list and changed my results. With that new view application log out of the way, that brings us to the end of the video for version 107. Please keep in mind that if you guys need assistance with anything, we do have a help desk. You guys can reach out to the help desk at 888-518-0818, option 2 once you get into our phone system, or you can shoot them an email at support@myservicedepot.com. And our operational hours are 8:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Thank you and have a great day.